Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're chose to join me today as we talk to the mega-rich, light-bending guy, who is called a name similarly, or interestingly similar to Dolores Day. He's Rostam Diodor, and the laws of the universe shape according to his will. The metaphor is quite obvious. This game likes its metaphors. I like this game. I mean, that's obvious. I like... I mean, duh. No, I like... I mean, yes, but I specifically, I like the fact that this game likes its metaphors. That's what I meant to say from the start. Because, it's not very common, actually, in RPGs. I've talked about it before, and it's super not common. Now, he was telling us about how the truth is that there are no objective systems by which to measure someone's value other than the market, and I was thinking about this, and this is the metatextual critique here, that we should just embrace that rather than resist it. But this is the interesting bit. This bit over here, I was thinking in between episodes about the immediate conclusion to this is that he is more valuable than everybody else because he's just super rich. Or mega rich, because that's the market, and that is the not even the ultimate conclusion. That is just the conclusion on its face of a philosophy that defends that somebody's value is measured by their success in the market, which is self-defeating immediately, because that is wrong, because no, he's not more valuable than other people. But the most interesting thing and the more pernicious aspect of this, and the one that sort of eluded me as I went and had some coffee, and I was thinking, and now when I sat down, I saw this word: objective system. And this is the mother of all evils. Not really. No, but it is an interesting, the need for an objective understanding and of the world, and even on something as subjective as the value of somebody. The need for that is very typical of somebody just like this, somebody like the mega rich light bending guy. It's a rabbit hole, because there is no need for that. And I mean, if you need it, you need it, sure, whatever. But for other people, there's no need for it. There's no such thing as like this. I think this has roots in humanism specifically, which is more or less when capitalism started. Not really, a little bit after. I think it's the 1600s in Belgium, where the first stocks were traded. I need to read on that, because I've talked about this with some people, and they said it's not quite like that. So I'm confused, and I need to read into that. I don't know exactly the origins of capitalism. I believe it's somewhere, even it might be earlier than that, than humanism. It doesn't mean that it's related, but the notion that the value of something or of someone is ascertained by or is determined by things that are under our control, be it money or the market. In our control here, I say as a species, it's definitely a very humanistic idea. Humanism, as far as I remember it to be, is mostly about detaching our fates from God specifically, and sort of trying to go in a more laicist, atheistic. Well, it's all related. Let's go with atheistic. That's not the word, but still, going with a more atheistic approach to society. It's not the... It might be the Enlightenment era that I was talking about before. But yeah. So, because I don't know exactly how specifically the Enlightenment started and when it started and all that sort of stuff. But this need for an objective understanding of reality is mostly misguided, because you're never going to be objective, even if you even if you do look at money as the objective system that measures somebody's value. That assessment that you say, it's an objective system, that assessment is subjective, because it is subjective to you. It is your It is subjective to your morals, to your ideals, to your way of thinking. So even though it is objective, yes, it's still subjective in the sense that it is decided by you that it is a way to measure people. And when I say it isn't, it is also a subjective. When I say this objective system of the market is not worth or is not worthy of choosing people's worth or value, whatever. When I say that, it's also a subjective statement because it is also dependent on my own beliefs and my own ideals and perspective. So that's why it's self-defeating. I mean, in historical context, maybe not in this setting, in this game setting, but in an historical context, it does have the need for an objective system has a reason to exist in the first place, which is the fact that it's more related to the pursuit of science and the pursuit of tangible realities that we can attest to through testing and just through like something that we can have. The need to have control over it is actually a large part of the reason why humanism was very popular. It's that you have control over it, and it's just a little bit easier than saying, oh, no, this understanding of the Bible, this is the proper understanding of the Bible, not your understanding of the Bible, which is how they did it up until then. But then after that, they just sort of came up with this idea that if we base our society in science, it's going to be a lot easier for us to have control over the variables that dictate our own worth. And so yeah, it's not to say that science. I'm obviously not saying that science is made up. I'm saying that the incentives for pursuing science as the basis of society are very different from the incentives that would be necessary or for people to look for something subjective to measure people's values by. But anyway, let's continue. The hand that allocates 7 minutes of me rambling. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. We haven't even moved. Anyway, the hand that allocates resources among men is invisible. I forgot his voice. I didn't forget his voice. I'm not saying it. The hand that allocates resources among men is invisible and cruel, but it is steady, measured, and indeed it is just, says the mega rich light-bending guy. Man being a high net worth individual sounds great. It is, truly. It's almost entirely carefree, he nods. It really leaves you time to better yourself spiritually. Hey, says our perception. All this talk about money has made you lose the thread. What is going on with the light in this place? That's what you need to ask him about. Really? You can't our perception sight can't read metaphors. We know what it is. We know what it's about. There's something strange about you. What do you mean? His essence seems to signify actual surprise. Well, I don't know how to put it. You look somehow a little different. Are you talking about my chin? No, I can't even see you. It's as if something is happening to the light. Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, yes, I've heard of this effect, though I've never witnessed it myself, of course. It has something to do with the Weissman coefficient. Or our Weissman coefficient. Our what? It's some statistical thing. In essence, it says that when an extremely low net worth individual meets an extremely high net worth individual, some of the laws of physics cease to apply. I thought it was going to be a reference to... I actually don't know what it's called, and I'm very sorry I don't know, because it's an interesting thing that you can look into and learn about. Yeah. But it's basically it's a legal precedent in the United States, and there's relatively good reason to believe that it isn't just buffoons coming up with ways to justify their own excesses and crimes. Basically, it's I think it's like this billionaire that was tried for something. They went to trial basically for something like dumb, like he went, like, I don't know, let's just I don't remember what it is, but like imagine a billionaire goes to a restaurant and gets out without paying. And the justification is, oh, I'm so rich, I never need to pay for anything. So always got people dealing with it for me, so I just forgot myself because I'm not one, I'm not one of you. I'm just isolated from society, and they have a name for this thing, for the fact that you're so rich that you don't even think like other people do because you're so isolated. And I don't know the name, and the name of that, it's like a syndrome, it's like a thing, and there's good reason to believe that's the case, because it is indeed a completely ludicrous and completely immoral way of that society has of elevating certain individuals above everybody else for their value, obviously, as the market dictates. That they work, so that's the one. They work for it, definitely. Billionaires definitely work for it. This guy is way more than a billionaire. This would be thousands, this would be millions, this would be billions, this would be Jeff Bezos. So he's the 3,000 Jeff Bezos. That's what he is. Is Jeff Bezos the richest person? Because I know he's about to become a trillionaire or something at the time of recording. By the time you see this episode, maybe he's got more than that, or maybe we've eaten him already. We'll see. Are you telling me that you are so rich that light literally bends around your face? That's what I said to start the episode, Harry. That's what I said, among other things. But calm down. I'm but a lowly single-digit billionaire. Yeah, I saw the other day, I don't remember if it was a tweet or if it was a video about how we treat millionaires, not billionaires, but millionaires. Here what he's saying is actually a little bit more grounded in, well, not grounded because this is a fantasy setting, but it's a little bit closer to our reality. Just, you see newspapers treat millionaires as like mere millionaires, and just sort of like, but he's just a millionaire, because billionaires is just on a completely different scale. It's like a millionaire is just absurdly huge amounts of money in a single person for sure, but a billionaire is 1,000 times of those absurdly huge amounts of money, at least. And he says it's a single digit, so for all I know, he could be 9,000 absurdly amounts of money. Yeah. But there is another. It's just so catastrophically, enormous amounts of money that billionaires accrue, that it's incomprehensible for us to look up and think about that sort of money, and so that's why I say it's probably very reasonable to believe that it is also incomprehensible to think the other way around, to be at that level and just have to care about anything really that is anywhere close to what we care in our day-to-day. Because that's the thing about capitalism, really. Our lives are 100% revolved around money. 100%. They're not necessarily just about money in the sense that it's you just spend every day of your life counting pennies, or thinking about how much you're going to have to pay for rent or all that sort of stuff. But everything we do is influenced by how much money we have and how much money we think we're going to have, how much money the people around us have, how much money things cost. Like, everything is based on that. And, like, for example, if you think of pre-capitalist societies, or I say pre-capitalist because I'm talking Europeans specifically, if you think of feudalism, for example, which is not necessarily incompatible with capitalism, it just works on a different level and it's different, which feudalism, it can be understood as sort of, it's not really how the Romans had land slavery. It's not really called that, I don't remember the name, but the Romans had a system where you would be able to become a citizen, but you wouldn't be able to leave your land, or you had to. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but basically, if you wanted to become a citizen, you were given, or you could become a citizen by being given a patch of land. But then, while you were a citizen, you couldn't leave the land, like the premises. So you were, I think it's called a land slave, but I'm not sure about the name specifically. And feudalism can work in that level as well, which is really, really screwed up. But feudalism just works on a completely different, still a very hierarchical structure for sure, because of the lords and the peasants under and all that sort of stuff. But the life of a peasant in feudalism is not related to money, in the sense that it's a much more familiar and I say familiar here with a caveat, but it's still a very close and familiar relationship with the Lord, and certainly with the people in the family. It doesn't mean that your priorities are still not extremely, extremely constricted, and they are, of course, in feudalism. I mean, they can be not constricted. There were lords that weren't jerks to their peasants, or however you say. There's a name for, it's not peasants, to their. There's a name for it, for a word for somebody who is below you when you're the lord of them. But like the liege would be the people above you, and there's another word for the one further down. But the and I say familiar here because for a kid who grows up in a family, hopefully a family that doesn't traumatize the kid with talks of money and yeah, because that is also a thing. People being traumatized from childhood because they basically don't have money, and then basically their whole lives are shaped by that, and their personalities, in fact, not just the lives, their personalities. The people are shaped. We are all shaped by the fact, by our material condition. But what I mean is, imagine being a kid on a suburban middle class family, and not having to think really too much about money up until the age of 7 or 8, maybe, or 10, depending on how your parents choose to raise you. That sort of relationship, your sort of priorities are not shaped by money. I mean, they're shaped in the sense that, you have access to whatever resources your family has, sure, but, that's the that's the case for every economical system. You're always going to have access to whatever resources you have. Even if you live by yourself in an island, you're not going to be able to eat something that the island doesn't give you, or you don't cultivate or hunt or whatever. Excuse the hiccup. So, I don't know why I started rambling about this, but it's just that we are just so fundamentally shaped by capital. And when I say actually, capital is not the correct term. It is the correct term, but we're shaped by the money we have and the money we need to have, and it's we're drowning in it all so much that it's not drowning in money, but or not necessarily drowning in money, but we're drowning like in the whole system, that it's very difficult to take a step back and realize how much it affects us as people. And thinking outside of it is even harder, let alone getting out of it. It is possible to get out of it, but it's just very difficult, mostly because we live in a society. Yeah, that's just basically how it works. We live in a society, and if you want to deal with people who are drowning in it, you're gonna need to get your toes wet. That's a pretty good analogy. I never thought about it. We're drowning in capitalism, and if you don't like it, well, you either stop talking to the people who are drowning in it, or you need to get your toes wet every once in a while. Huh. Anyway, moving on. Oh, I'm calm? What is that? Oh, he says calm down. Never let him... Oh, both of these options are tricky. Never let him control... Well, never let these people control the narrative of the direction of the conversation. This I'm calm is what he wants. But this really is also just asking him to move on. So both of them are sort of leading him on, which is okay, because I'm letting the game tell its own story. I say never let these people control the conversation, mostly because they don't need to be right. These people don't need to be right. All they need is to convince you of their self-worth here in this situation anyway. And for that, they don't need to be right. They just need to convince you. And they use techniques like sort of misdirection, which is what he's doing right now. Are you telling me that you are so rich that light literally bends around your face? And he's saying, calm down, which is misdirection. It's a very good technique, actually. I'm gonna say really. No, not really. There are actually quite many digits. Yeah, I figured. It's a lot more than billionaire. A man this chill is at least a triple-digit billionaire, says our suggestion. Kim, are you seeing this weird stuff? I see nothing of the sort, says Kim. To be frank, all I see is a gentleman who's unusually well dressed for Martinez in a cargo container, which I admit is odd. That's one way of putting it, Kim. Yes, I imagine that does look strange to you, Mr. Container. Sorry, not Mr. Container. That would be weird. That does look strange to you, my container. Wait, yeah, what are you doing in this container? Traveling. This is a great way to get around. It's fun, it's safe, and it gives me lots of time to think. By the way, let me now ask you a question. Where are we, exactly? We're in Martinez, a district of Revachol, the former capital of the world. Ah, Revachol. I remember walking its streets as a teenager. There used to be a bowling alley in Stelmarie. I wonder if it's still there. It's a shame I can't get out and explore myself. One of the downsides of being an extremely high net worth individual is that mobs of low net worth individuals are constantly banding together to ask for money. Wait, why don't you help them? You've got so much money, it can't make a difference to you. That's true, but it does make a difference. Because in a system that doesn't exploit the poor, he can't make as much money. So it's not even as much about the money that he would lose to the people who are poor. It's the fact that the poor people need to work, which is much more worth it to him. Just think about it like this. Imagine you live in a village that has 100 people, and 50 of those people are starving all the time. They have to work, and they get the money. They're not starving. I mean, they will starve if they don't work, because there's no such thing as things like universal basic income or unemployment benefits and stuff like that. It's just a village of 100 people. You can't expect that stuff to exist. Anyway, 50 people work a lot, and so a lot, like 8 hours a day, whatever. And they get like $10 a day, and it's good for them to eat and their stuff. But the things that they make are actually worth 100, because that village sells to outside or whatever the situation is. So there's one person who employs those 50 people, and that person pays them 10 per day, but makes 100 out of them. Now, that person has so much money that basically, in rough accounts, they're making 50,000. Is it 100 times 50? No, sorry, $5,000 every day, not minus the wages. But it doesn't matter because the wages are so insignificant that in this example that it doesn't matter. So let's just think that that person up top, because they are selling whatever those 50 people are making, is making 50,000 money, right? Which is how some companies work. And those people are making among themselves 500 money, and that's what they get to eat every day. Now, after a few years, the person on top is going to have a lot of money, right? 50,000 a day, or 5,000 a day, that's a lot of money. So it is, and because of the discrepancy there, it is totally possible for that person to actually, you know what, just decide to give to the poor and just be like, you know what, I'll pay you $10 today and $10 tomorrow, or I'll give you 100 or 1,000 even per each one of those people. Now, what's going to happen then is that that rich person is going to lose a little bit of money, right? It's maybe a lot of money, maybe 500,000 or something like that if they pay them a lot. But the problem is they're going to lose a lot more because those people, seeing that money or having that money, are not going to need to work under miserable conditions or whatever conditions they were under to work for that person. So they're just going to quit their job, or they're going to find a better job that maybe pays less. And I say better job here that pays less, and I realize that to some of you that might be, wait, that's not a better job then. No, I mean a better job as in active, that you like better, not a better job that pays more, because that's not what I thought we established before, that money is not the measure of value. Anyway, the point is that person is going to lose a lot more because of the value extracted from those workers. That's what they stand to lose, and that's why super rich people don't want the poor people to not be poor. It's not even that they don't want the poor people to not be poor or to not be as poor. Is that they need them to be poor because they're extracting value from them every time. Maybe not as an individual. Maybe there are billionaires who are, quote, ethical, unquote. There's no such thing. But as a class, they certainly don't want the poor to not be poor because they need them. And that's why extracted value that's why the extracted value of labor in this situation is the real worth of people, and that's why that's theft, because they're just stealing their money. If you make a machine that sells for 100, you made that machine, and you should get the 100, right? What is the reason why you don't get the 100? Well, it's because for you to make that machine, you probably need tools, or you need a place to work, and you just need that, or maybe you need health insurance or whatever other situation that your employer is going to give you. And that's the justification that's given to extract the profit, which is the real value. So to think about it, like, the thing is, I'm saying this because to think about it like this, which I'm saying this as well in the context of, if you look at the date of publishing this video, you can see that's sort of midway through the, well, I say midway, hopefully it's midway, through the COVID-19 crisis, and specifically it's a really complicated time of history right now, and this sort of stuff matters a lot right now. And it's complicated to analyze it through, for me, it's very complicated to analyze it through any other means. It's not that, it's just on the face of it, it's not that they don't want people to have money. It's like, I'm sure in the minds of millionaires and billionaires, if the poor could have money, they wouldn't care. They don't care about the money. Because it's not about the money, it's about the power, as we said last episode. They don't care about the money. What they care is about the implicit threat that is under or over people's heads. The threat of that if you stop working, you go hungry. So if in an ideal world, we were talking about ideals before, if in an ideal world the poor could have a lot of money and eat all they need and have all the nice clothes that they want and a big television. I always go for the big television because it's a lovely metaphor, but it's they could have a big television. The poor could have a big television. But if in that ideal world those poor would lose everything the moment they stopped working, it would work totally fine for the billionaires, because it would just hunker those workers down to work, because that's what they need. That's what they need. They need work, or rather, when I say they, I mean the billionaires. That's what the billionaires need. And the billionaires are just a tiny fraction, really. It's the whole system that works like that. But it's the implicit threat. The threat of you going hungry if you stop working. And that's why you see, like, that's the true meta text of games like, for example, the Outer Worlds, where, and not just the Outer Worlds, any sort of, like, futuristic dystopia situation where when people are not able to work, they are basically worthless to society. In the Outer Worlds, they definitely have that. That's what that is. The joke isn't that, aren't corporations really evil? Yes, they are. But that's not the joke. The joke is the real value of a person is the extracted value of that person. And that's why they are worthless the moment they can't have value extracted from them as much or at all. And in games like the Outer Worlds, that's like front and center. That's what the meta text is there for, and you see that as well in a lot of franchises. Alien does that, and I don't know why Alien is the one that comes to mind. I mean, I know why Alien is the one that comes to mind. It's one of the best movies of all time, but it's in Nefra franchise for sure. But certainly in a lot of dystopic societies, dystopic fictions. You see that sort of criticized and sort of satirized, because that's just it, really. And that's why protecting the rights of people who cannot work is so important. Not just because it's the moral and humane thing to do, and it is, but also because protecting their rights is ensuring that our worth is not measured by our extracted value. As people who, like, for me, I'm privileged to be able, or normally abled, and, like, my value to society, in our society, is still the value that the money that I can be extracted from, or the money that can be extracted from me, is what I mean to say. And I am fortunate as well to live in a country that does have some social structures that will prevent me from starving immediately if I stop working. But I certainly am not allowed to just stop working in the things that really don't feed me, because what I do really is I do YouTube videos, and I'm very happy to do them, and I also do the websites. I have that's my daytime job. I'm not as happy to do that one, but that's what I do. That's not really something that, you know, feeds me. It just gives me money. So there's no reason why if I stopped doing that, all of a sudden I wouldn't have to eat, because where's the correlation? The correlation is really at the heart of it is the fact that society doesn't value me the moment I stop doing that, because the extractive value is where it is. Distilling this down is so complicated, though. Distilling, like, getting to the heart of it is just so difficult. And, like, I'm doing my best to explain it to you. And if this is the first time you're hearing this sort of ideas being spoken out loud, I probably lost you halfway through already. Because it's so complicated to think about this stuff. It's really... I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I lost you halfway through. And if I haven't, hopefully I'll see you next episode, because we're out of time for the day. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Disco Elysium. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment. Like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.